All right. So welcome to today's video. This is for Monday, August 30th, 2021 at Indiana Grand. I'm Chris, and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I'm going to be going over my picks for Indiana Grand on Monday, August 30th. But again, if you want the updated version of these grids that come out after scratches, or if you want to follow my picks from Indiana Grand or other tracks around the country, you can follow me on Twitter at handicappingT3, or you can read my articles on bettingnews.com. There I usually cover Indiana Grand, sometimes Saratoga, kind of wherever the big stakes races are going on for the week. So today I'm going to take you through my handicapping of Monday's card. I'm going to do things a little differently than I have in the past on the videos, so we can kind of see the grid side by side with the past performances to look at some new strategies that I've been using. So one of the things with me is I'm a big pick three player. That's one of my favorite bets to play. It allows me to extend my money over a series of races with the 50-cent minimums. I can also play for cheaper. I tend to be a smaller bankroll player, so my money goes further with the 50-cent pick three wager. And so one of the things that I have been finding a lot of success with of late is using three in a row as sort of a single for my pick threes. Now, at some of the bigger tracks, I've been using those three in a rows for win, play, show ladders as well. Indiana Grand, the pools tend to be pretty efficient, and a lot of times the horses that I land on end up being really heavily bet anyway. And so it's not always efficient to hit a win bet and a show bet as well, even if they're laddered. It just takes so much equity to get anything out. And if you miss a couple, you can be chasing the rest of the day. So Indiana Grand, my strategy for Monday is to really hit the pick threes and just stay super focused in that one pool, and hope that I can hit on a few bets and make it a profitable day. So let's take a look at what we've got here. At Indiana Grand, our first race is going to be 5.5 furlong state bred claimers, non-2 lifetime. It's a dirt sprint, and we saw last week the early speed bias start to come back. So it was starting to trend further towards the back. And now we're starting to see it move forward once again, to where those front runners are able to hold on at a much higher rate than they were the previous 2 week cycle. So we're going to give a preference to front runners. You can see this race has a pace rating of an 18 out of 24, so moderate pace, nothing too blazing. Back runners have not been very successful. So here you can see the letter grades and the strikes. I've gone over those in previous videos. So 3B, 4C, 4X, 1B, 1X, 1A. I'm just going to go over them kind of quickly there because I want to show you how I've been working my pick three strategy over the course of the past week. I've been profitable every day for the last 5 days. Now that I've said that, probably will have a horrible Monday. But you can see that when I come over here, I look at the grid, and you can see I've got 6, 2, 2, 1, 6, 1, 1, 4, 2. So the 6 is the speed horse, the 2 is the stamina, the 2 is the class, the 1 is the jockey trainer, the 6 has the best record at the distance, the 1 has the best race flow, the 1 has the best form. The pace will come from the 4, or I should say the best pace rating comes from the 4, and then the best rating overall comes from the 2. Now, these are 3-year-olds, so I still do use breeding ratings. I still think that matters a lot. You can see we've got a tie for the top prime power rating. I don't use that until horses turn 4, just because there's still so much development that's going on. So as I'm looking at this grid, one thing you'll notice is that no horse has 3 in a row. I've got 622, 662, 611, 142, 161, etc. When I don't have 3 in a row, I just use all horses equally. And again, I found this to be a great way to cover as many of the horses as I've basically handicapped through my grids, to include as many as possible, but also to keep my ticket structure small. So because none of them have 3 in a row, I'm going to use 1, 2, 4, and 6 equally. You'll notice I didn't talk really about strikes or anything like that. I've been kind of really sticking to these grids, to make myself successful. And then, like I said, it's been working as of late. So I'm going to keep riding with it on Monday. So let's go on to race 2. Right now, we're 4 deep, especially the pick threes in Indiana Grand tend not to be huge. So that's not super appetizing unless I can find a place to get a little bit skinnier. So let's take a look at race number two. Race number two is going a mile 70 for state bred maiden special weights. 36,000 is the purse. Again, we've got early speed, 16. So this one's pretty slow from a pace perspective. S types are struggling, and the slow pace would suggest that will continue. 3B, 2X, 2C, 3X, 3X, 2A are my letter grades with my strikes. Again, if you've watched my previous videos, you kind of know what that means. So when I come to my board, I've got 5, 6, 6, 1, 1, 1. There's three in a row, 1, 6, 3. So the horses that show up on my tic-tac-toe board are the 1, 3, 5, and 6. But because the one horse here shows up in 3 consecutive, I'm going to end up singling the 1 here. And I'm going to try and play everything through this 9-2 shot. Could be a little dangerous because you've got this obviously heavily regarded horse here at 4-5 in altered. Has a really good average race rating, speed figures that tower over the group. So I get all that. And certainly that horse does show up on my picks as well. But the 1 has the 3 in a row, and that's going to allow me to keep my ticket small. So I might play a backup runner through the 3, 5, and 6 as well, but I'm going to be pretty heavily anchored into this 1 and see if I can catch a price here because of these 3 in a row. The other thing is, as I've been doing more study on the grid and where winners come from, and if any of these particular boxes are connected, I've been finding a real strong correlation between winners and showing up in both flow and form. It seems like when a horse is going to get the best of the bias, as well as the best, as well as is coming in with the best form on my numbers, they tend to win at a much higher clip. So that's also a positive for this. I don't typically consider this a super strong line, but when I see that, it definitely helps me to upgrade a little bit. So I'm going to go pretty heavily through the 1 here. I might use the 3, 5, and 6 elsewhere, maybe some exactas, things like that. But I'm going to use the 1 pretty heavily. Moving on to race number 3. Now we're getting a little quicker here. We're going to get a 21 pace. We're back to a dirt sprint. E-types, S-types have been bad. E-types have been good. Our letter grades 3C, 1A, 1X, 2A, 3X, 3X. And then when we get down here, now as I'm looking at the grid, I've got 4, 2, 1, 2, 4. So I've got 3 horses here that are tied for class. I've got the jockey trainer 5, record 2, flow 4, form 1, 2, 4, and 6. Their flow or their form ratings all came out the same. Pace is 2 and rating is 4. So in this situation, I have actually 2 3 in a rows technically, because I have the 2 who is 3 in a row, both stamina record pace as well as technically also form record class. But if you're going to use multiple horses, then the 4 is also 3 in a row with class, flow, and rating. Again, you're seeing that 4 going flow and form, which I just mentioned as a pretty strong connector. So what I'm going to do in this situation, typically if I were playing a win, place, show, ladder, I would be all through the 2 because the 2 has an exclusive line, stamina, record, pace. The 2 is the only horse in all of those categories. To me, that's a strong play. That's going to be my top selection. Now, that horse is 8-1 on the morning line. So, good value there. I'm also interested in the 4, and I can get away with it because the 4 horse is 6-1. So actually, the 2 horses that I like the most in this race are the 2 longest shots on the board. So I'm going to be most heavily played through the 2, but I will also play a little bit through the 4 as well. So I'll kind of use this as almost an A-B situation, and then I'll use the rest of these either on total saver tickets or in more vertical exotics. Okay, so that's where I'm going with that, and that's kind of how I deal with if there's ever multiple 3 in a rows that come up, and it does happen on a fairly regular basis. Race number 4, a mile optional claimer for 18,000 non-winners of 1. And when we come over here, so we've got 20 moderate to quick speed, but maybe just a hair on the fast side. E types are good, S types are not. 3X, 4X, 3C, 2C, 2B, 3X, 2B. And then I come down here, you can see 2, 3, 7, 4, and 5. So as I'm looking through these early races, it definitely looks like I'm going to need to key through races 2 and 3, because here, as I'm looking 2, 3, 3, 7, 4, 2, 5, 5, 7, again, nowhere on the board do I have 3 in a row, so I'm using 5 horses equally. That's going to get really expensive, and the payouts at Indiana Grand tend not to be real big unless you have massive prices. Now, maybe because of what I'm going to get in race 3 with the 2-4, maybe that will help me here. But you can see I'm getting pretty spready once again. Okay. So I'm going to go on now to race number 5. We're going a mile for filly and state bred maidens. Now, this is an interesting race here. And this, I think, is one of the great limitations of the system that I use. You can see early speed has been winning on dirt routes. We've talked about that already. And then S types have struggled. The pace is only listed as a 10, which is extremely slow. But we're also dealing with filly state bred maiden claimers. Combined, I think this entire field has 6, 7, 8 starts between 7 runners. So there's not a lot of established form here. Now, all of my tic-tac-toe boards are based on data. So in this case, you look at this board and you're like, one's a lock. And truth be told, one probably is a pretty strong favorite in this race. But as I'm looking at this board, I'm also recognizing that the one has data based on one race. But I believe that horses can take massive jumps from race 1 to 2. So just because this horse ran a 47, and let's say like this horse ran a 45, so not that far off. This horse is trending upwards. This horse ran a 34, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I believe that the one is the strongest contender here, but the one also does have 3 strikes against. So there's 3 reasons to believe that maybe this horse won't be successful here. And so with that, when I was putting together my board, I actually came up with all but 3. The 3 horse I'm struggling to make a case for. Everybody else in the race, I see something in their past performance that says, hey, maybe they've got a shot. So I'm going to use the one most heavily here in the 5th race, but I'm going to probably have a ticket on all of them, okay, with the exception of the 3. Okay, so now in a 7 horse field, I've got 6. So if I go really strongly through that 2 horse in race number 3, I can go 2 into my 5 selections, into my 6 selections. Well, that's going to be a $15 pick 3 for 50 cents. If a favorite ends up coming in, that price could be depressed. Now, I do have, like I said, some good prices, so I'll probably go with both the 2 and the 4 into my 4 horses, into the 6 horses here with a stronger preference on the 1. I'll kind of punch that one up a little bit more if I choose to play this part of the sequence. But it's one of the things that I really wanted to point out, because when you look from an outsider's perspective, you see this board and you say, oh my gosh, the 1 is the lock of the day. And while the 1 may be a good favorite, it's important to recognize that when you see that the age is 2, it's really important to recognize that there's a lot of variability in what can happen in the race from what happens on the board, simply because of the fact that a lot of the horses don't have data. Now, I do feel fairly good about the 1 here because most of these horses at least have a race, but who knows how reliable the 6's data is, the 7's data is, the 4's data is, the 1's data, and then the 2, 3 are complete oddballs with no data. So really the only horse that we have true form numbers on is the 5. And actually, the 5 fits in a couple of places: flow and form, speed. So it's a tough situation when you get these younger horses. In reality, I'll probably just play through the 1. Because otherwise I'm going to be too spread, especially if I want to play out of the 5th race and into other pick sequences. Going deeper than the 1 just isn't going to make sense from a budget standpoint. And since that's what my grid says, I'm going to probably trust blindly in it, but also keep my bankroll into that wager pretty small. All right, moving on now to race six. We actually have a fairly small card at Indiana Grand on this Monday. There's no quarters, so it's just going to be a nice 8 race thoroughbred card, short, sweet, and to the point. This race should have a blistering pace up on top. We've got early speed types as the best, 22 out of a possible 24. That's a pretty good clip, much higher than many of the ones I've had, even at Indiana. So definitely maybe not as concerned about the weak pace issues if you're coming from off of it, because it does look like there's going to be plenty of pace to run at, even though that doesn't typically work well in these types of races. 0A, 1B, 1X, 3C, 2X, 0A. You can see that as I came down here, again, looking through 466, 266, 114. I've got 4 6s right here. I definitely think the 6 is in with a great shot at 8-5. Uh, but at the same time, I don't have 3 in a row, so I can't get real thin here. Probably going to have to go 4 deep. I do have a preference for the 6, but 1, 2, 4 are going to have to be respected and used as well. Moving on to race number 7. This is the second to last race on the card, with slower pace here for the for olders. Okay. We've got only a pace rating of a 16. Early speed again, late speed not doing so well. 5x, 6x, 1a, 3x, 2c, 3x, 2x, 2x. And as I come down here, everything you can see here points to the 1, 3, and 5. Now, again, no 3 in a row, so I've got to use them all. But with the 1, 3, 5, I have 3 horses that I feel pretty confident in. Now, when I go to look at their prices over here, the 5 is going to be 6-1, the 3 is going to be 3-1, and the 1 is going to be 12-1. So I've got a good range of prices there. I'm beating the 7, hopefully, Forever Champ. Now that's a little dangerous with only 2 strikes, but I'm willing to take my chances here. Especially if I look at this form pattern, 82, 44, 86. Let's just run another 44 and let me beat that horse with the 1, 3, 5. Okay. Right now I'm in a tough spot because I've got 4 horses in race number 6. I've got the 1, 2, 4, 6. Now I'm coming back with 3 horses, so I'm up to 12 on a $1 wager coming into the last race. Do I like the 3 better than the 1 and the 5? Sure, I do. That would be my top selection. The money line maker says it as well. But at the same time, I've been using 3 in a row as my kind of line in the sand. That's where I determine that I have a single. So we're going to move on to race 8, which is the final race of the day. And this is another really good one. I'm actually really glad with the shorter card, kind of how things lined up, because it helps me go through some of the idiosyncrasies of the system a little bit. So this is our one turf event. We're going turf route. Actually, late runners have been successful there. Not surprising. That tends to be kind of a turf phenomena. And then there really hasn't been a bad run style. I use 10%, generally speaking, as my sort of cutoff for a bad run style, horses that are winning at 10% or less. And there is no run style that's running at 10% or less based on my numbers. So doesn't look like there's going to be a ton of speed signed on. This one has all the makings of a New York turf race with only 15. But again, we are dealing with maiden special weight, so some of that's just less data always to go off of. So 2x, 3x, 5x, 3x, 0x, 1x, 3x, 2c, 4x, 2c, 1a, 2x, 3x. And again, those numbers make sense if you've been following my videos before, and if you need to know what they mean, you can go back and check those out. Now, one thing that I like about this last race is it brings up another important issue, which is that when I go to make my selections here, one of the things you'll notice over here is that I don't have 3 in a row. I have the 11 very prominently placed. The 11 is 3-1, West Coast Justice. But I don't have spots of 3 in a row. So when I went to make my grid with no 3 in a row, 3, 7, 8, 10, 11, and 13 all show up on this grid. So as of right now, this late pick 3 or many of the late wagers in general are borderline unplayable because I can't go from 12 and then take 6 horses. Because remember, I was 3 by 4. I can't take 6 horses in the last race. That's just too many, and that's going to blow my ticket way up. However, this system is computer automated. So once I scratch horses out of this system, it's going to recalibrate everything based on only the horses that are left. So you can see changes happen. If the pace drops below a certain number, then it will totally impact the way that the pace calculation is done. It might impact, like, for example, here we have a 13 who's an also eligible. Based on my interpretation of the way that the track has been playing, the 13 could get the best run of it. Now, that doesn't mean that the 13 is going to be the best runner, but could get the best race flow to set up to outrun the odds, right? The 13 is also eligible. So if nobody scratches out from the inside, the 13 will come out. And if the 11 ends up then getting best of flow, right? Now we could have 3 in a row. Or maybe the 3 comes out and that elevates the 11 to the best class horse. So there are ways in which the board can change pretty quickly, to make a big overhaul. So, like, we just need to be aware that just because this is what it is right now doesn't mean it's what it will be when we get to post time. So that's where following me on Twitter can be really helpful, because I don't post the grids until after scratches have been announced. So my picks may change, and I may end up just singling to the 11 here in the last race, playing a pick 3 into the 11. I'm not sure if that's how I'm going to play it or not. Again, that will depend on the scratches, but I wanted to point that out. It is a great reason to follow me on Twitter, so you can get those most updated picks and selections. So as I'm going through and as I'm looking at this, that's the last race of the day. If I can scratch down to the 11 here, then I'll probably play a late pick 3, and I'll go through my 4 horses into my 3 horses into the 11. Outside of that, if this race 8 stays pretty well intact, it's probably going to be a pretty early day for me at Indiana Grand. My strongest opinions came early. Not in the first race where I had 4, but in races 2 and 3, I had some smaller fields. I like the one here at 9-2, and then I like the 2 longest shots on the morning line here in the 2-4. So I'm probably going to play a pick 3, 1, 2, 3. I may play 1, 2, 3, 4. I may play a 3, 4, 5. That 5th race is that goofy maiden special weight where I preferred the 1 to everybody else. I'm probably going to stop there. I'm probably not going to play beyond unless there's some significant scratches from that 5th race, unless there's some significant scratches from other places around the board that make it more appealing to jump in there. That way I can keep the amount of bankroll I'm spending down and concentrated on the areas where I think I have both an odds edge, especially looking at race number 3, but also just looking at where I can play tickets that are most efficient. So kind of a different way of looking at things here at Indiana Grand for Monday. Good luck to you as you play. And as I said, if you want to follow me at Handicapping T3 on Twitter, or you can follow my articles on bettingnews.com. Thanks and good luck at Indiana Grand.